Well, friends, welcome to tonight's conversation. I'm Brian, one of the lead pastors at Walnut Hill, and I'm joined with my friend Grant Miller, who is going to talk with me tonight about our topic, which is saying yes in a season of waiting.
Very fun.
Very fun, right? And this is what we talked about on Sunday. If you missed the message, you can go back and check that out. And, I said in the message, Grant, that, we just love being patient. It's just built in, isn't it?
It's excellent. It's really fun.
I think of my kids and kids, they love being patient and so do adults. It just comes natural for us. But I'm kind of being sarcastic here if you haven't caught on, but we get to experience these seasons of waiting. We pray things maybe for a long time. I think of parents who have prayed for their kids for years and years.
Right.
I think of many people going through health journeys, been praying. People who are out of work, looking for work, praying. Lots of different things where we experience these seasons of waiting or being patient. And they can be seasons where we really grow in the Lord and ones that we need to say yes in. Now, before we get there, I did want to ask you a couple other questions because there's this book out. Have you heard of the book?
Yeah, I've heard of the book, and I've met the author before. He's a really good guy.
Oh, good. So, on the other side of yes, if you haven't purchased it yet, go for it and do it. Author is Brian Mowrey, and it's the sections have been on saying yes to the promises of God and saying yes to being devoted. I want to just ask you a couple questions about those two, and then we'll get into our conversation about the season of waiting. When we talk about this, saying yes to the promises of God, we talked about three promises, saying yes to you are loved, you have a purpose, and you are not alone. I wondered, as you kind of read through those, you're a community group leader, as you studied those, did any of them stick out to you as important in this season for you personally?
Yeah, well, I feel a little bit like we had the Cliff's Notes version of the book because you had been in our community group at one time, so we heard a little bit of this. But I think for me, it's the you're not alone. The good news is, I've got a few more years on a lot of people, and we've had the experience of God being with us in the difficult times and in the good times. And, that's a message that just really resonates with me is, I feel God with us, no matter what's going on. And knowing that God is with us is just, it's a comforting thing. I don't have to worry about all the stress or all the, activity that's going on with me because I can count on God being there.
Yeah. And it's such an amazing one. I know as a pastor walking with people in all kinds of different seasons, whether it's a season of suffering or waiting or celebration, so often I get to hear people's testimony but I've known God's presence in it, right. Which is so amazing that God chooses to walk with us in every season, that we truly aren't alone. How about we've done a lot on saying yes to being devoted people. Yep. We talked about prayer and fasting and compassion and unity and a bunch of different things. Anything kind of stick out to you there? Any stories that you've heard from just people at the church? Yeah,
so there's a couple that jump out at us. One is Rhonda, my wife, and I have been fasting, which is a new experience for us. Okay. I can't say that I've quite figured it all out, but we've been trying, and it's been it's been rewarding, and we've kind of enjoyed going through it and doing that. I think with the election, I think the peacemaking unity piece was we talked about that a lot in community group to how do we drive peace, how do we bring unity, how do we bring people together in community and bring the Lord to people to drive peace. Yeah. And I think Thanksgiving was an interesting one too because as you talked in the book, you need to be thankful in the moment as well as when things are done. And for me, as we'll talk about later, being in kind of that waiting period, being thanks in the moment is, give thanks in all circumstances. Yeah. It's a good message to kind of think about, keep your eye on God and make sure you're focused on the things that are, going well and how God is, acting in our lives. Yeah,
that's awesome. And maybe we could talk about this more later, but I know for myself, I'm really thankful when things are complete.
Yeah,
like that's when I feel best. Even like with projects around the house, like once it's done, then I feel good. But being able to be thankful in each step is it's a discipline, really. but something that's really good for our souls and good for our connection with the Lord too.
Right.
Let's talk about this season of waiting. I know even as I preach this message, there's a lot of people feeling like they're in a season of waiting right now. In one sense, this COVID season, it feels like a season of waiting. But then, maybe more at a deeper level, people are going through seasons of waiting in their health journeys or whatever it might be. Can you talk to us just a little bit about what your season of waiting has been, or maybe even past experiences of seasons of waiting?
Yeah, I think when I think about waiting, there's kind of two things that jump out at us, and they're kind of polar opposites in one sense. Yeah. When our first child was born, my wife Rhonda went into premature labor 12 weeks early. And at that time we were told that she had a 50% chance of living, and we needed to do whatever we could to stop the labor. And we remember feeling the Lord being there and giving us peace, that He was in control. Yeah. And no matter that she was in and out of the hospital during that whole time, and she was on bed rest and all those things, we remember the peace of God telling us that we were going to wait, and that God was going to protect our baby. It turned out to be, a beautiful baby girl, and is now 29 years old. So it's all worked out well. Yes. But that's kind of where waiting was good. Yes. I think current season that you obviously know a little bit about is, I remember back about a year and a half ago, one of my prayers was I'd like to spend more time with my family. Yes. Because I was working a lot and, 20 hours a day kind of stuff. And, it's the old joke, be careful what you pray for. Right? Yes. So I ended up selling my company and ended up being without a job. Yes. And now I've been looking for a job in the middle of COVID. Yep. And, election cycle and all those kind of things. And it's been a really interesting time to be in that environment. And I'm a guy that, if I go to a beach, I can sit still for about 37 seconds. Okay. And I'm a peg-the-meter extrovert. Yes. So I need to be around people. Yep. And in this time of waiting, I've been by myself. Yes. In a room with, nothing to compete on or nothing to do, because I've, painted all the rooms of the house or done all the things that I need to do to fix things up. Yeah. So for me, I really feel God teaching me to slow down and feel the Lord, because I'm 1,000 miles an hour in everything I do, and probably in my prayer life as well. Yeah. And God has just been teaching me peace and patience, and those are things that I'm not very good at. Yeah. So it's been really a great learning for me. Yeah. So you've been in this season for about a year and a half, is that right? Yeah, a little under. Yeah. And can you talk to me a little bit about like some of the emotions that have come through this year and a half as you've been kind of just waiting for, what's my next adventure going to be? Yeah. So for the type of position I'm looking for, usually it's a 12 to 18 month time frame, and you kind of assume it's going to be 12 or 9, kind of things like that. And I'd say overall, we have never had any concern that God has a plan. And for us, we've actually been, I think, very relaxed about the fact that God has a plan. Yeah. It'd just be nice if the Lord told us what that was. And, it's the old saying, I'll probably get it wrong, but, God's never in a hurry, but He's always right on time. Yeah. So whatever God's timing is going to be whatever God's timing is. But, we've seen God active with us. I mean, simple things like there was one job that I was pretty close. I was actually in the final stage of, and would have got it, but it was right in COVID. And that business, I was, praying for God to, show me whether it was right or wrong. Yes. Was this the right position? Close the door. Open the door, close the door, and the door was closed with COVID, and that company has virtually ceased to exist. They were in a business that needed trade shows and events. Right. And God really protected us from taking that job, moving to a new location, selling our house, doing all those kind of things. So, we can see God's hand in that. But, on the other hand, look, I get frustrated. I'm disappointed. Every job I'm looking at, I want to get that job, and there are some days that Lord, I don't get it. Can you just give me peace today? And so it's been a little bit up and down, but for the most part, it's been really great because I wanted to read through the Bible again in a year. I've been able to do that. I'm now 27 days from being done.
All right.
So almost done with that. I've gotten the fasting. I've had great prayer time. Really seen and felt God's presence in that time.
So there's been some opportunity in your personal faith in this season.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit about just as you hit these different emotions in a season of waiting, as you confront these different questions, maybe Lord, why didn't this come through?
Right.
How did you approach it? Maybe there are even some things a year and a half ago that you weren't doing so well that you've learned now in just how to approach a season of waiting.
Right. Well, my favorite verse is 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Because for me, that's a really freeing verse, which is when I'm stressed out, when I'm frustrated, when I'm anxious about something, that's just throw it over the wall to God. He's got my back. I can't do anything about it right now.
Right.
It's time to just, purge myself of that and be done with it. And I think, starting off my day in the Word and with a devotional has just been great for me because it's that kind of mindset twist. If you go into the day and you let the events kind of hit you, then that kind of shapes how you feel about the day. And if you step back and go, I'm going to be with the Lord today and the Lord's going to be with me, that helps the day go a lot better. And then I cast my anxiety on the Lord quite often. And if I'm really frustrated or if I'm disappointed, then I turn it over, I kind of wipe the slate clean, and I move on to the next thing that I'm going to do.
I think that in a season of waiting, there's always this tension between really stepping out in faith and trusting the Lord, and this feeling of like a season of waiting, you shouldn't push. So in a season of waiting, I don't want to push out and just do what I think is best.
Right.
I want to hear from the Lord, but at the same time, I don't want to be completely inactive either. Right? So, a season of waiting doesn't look like just sitting on the couch.
Right.
So I know for you, you've been working in this season.
Right.
You've been hunting, you've been talking, you've been, whatever it takes. So did you struggle with that balance at all? Or is there any advice that you'd give people in a season of waiting between, activity, inactivity, rest, and kind of forging ahead with our own kind of plans? If that makes sense. A lot of questions in one.
So a couple things. One is one of the most freeing things I was told kind of early in this process was from probably the most diligent friend I have. And I told him that we were checking in with each other, and I told him that I had a great day yesterday. I worked from 9 until 5. And he said, "What do you do all day?" He says, because he was looking for a job as well. And I said, "Well, and I went down the list of stuff." And he says, I can only find about 2 or 3 hours worth of real legitimate work, and the rest of it is like Bible study or prayer or talking to a friend or talking to my wife or having lunch kind of thing. And that was probably the best thing that I heard from someone, because for John, who is very structured and very orderly, for him to kind of, give you permission to, you still have to do your work, but there's an end to it, and you have to you have to step back sometimes. So that was good. I think the other thing is, to your point, you need to do, your job is finding your next job, or if you're having an illness, your job is going through the treatments and making sure that you recover from that. You still have to do all those things. You can't just ignore it because, like you said, you can't sit on the couch and have that solved. But, I think if you step back, I know God has a plan. And God is putting the pieces in place. And as I, continue to look for my job, God is going to find the right position that's ideal for me and my family, and we're going to go forward with that.
Yeah. When you think about, let's say we're 10 years from now, and you look back at this season, what do you think are going to be kind of the hallmark things you remember about this season, where you'd say, man, and it was in this season that I, was transformed in this way, or it was in this season that I learned this? How do you think you'll tell the story 10 years from now?
Yeah, it's kind of that to-do list of things that I've always wanted to do. Yes, I'd read through the Bible before, but I'd never really done it in a blitz like this.
Yeah.
Had I memorized verses before? A couple.
Yeah.
But I've taken this, I've always wanted to memorize more, to kind of have them at my fingertips. I've had the time to do that. And I think overall, it's just the time with the Lord and in the Word is, that's what has me at peace. Yeah. And, I just really haven't had a time. I've been working for 35 years. Yeah. I haven't really had that time to step back. And plus, I teach Sunday school and we lead community group, and I've been able to devote extra time to those things, which has allowed me, for me it's been great. I love doing those kind of things. So I think that's what I'm going to look at. It's like you said, it's a season. Yeah. And it's a season of kind of rest and reflection in God, and sometimes they've even called it a sabbatical. Yeah. God's giving me a break. Yeah. From all the normal stress, and then I'm getting ready for the stretch run, for the next 10 years or whatever the future holds. Yeah. I think oftentimes when disruption happens in our lives, it presents an opportunity to kind of reset things. Right. Are there some things that you'd love to carry in to your next season? Once the season of waiting is over, we're praying that you're in that 7th lap, that you're almost done. I heard the 7th lap today. That was good.
The walls are going to come down and breakthrough's going to come here soon. We're praying. What are some things that you'd really like to carry into, that next season?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty simple. It's the equivalent of the first 20 for me, which is having that regular cadence. Even if it's a short time in prayer because today's busy, it doesn't really matter. Just having that time in the Word and in a quick prayer if it needs to be quick. That I call it the attitude adjustment. Yeah, is something that I need to keep because life is stressful. Everybody has things going on in their lives, and for me, starting the day with the right attitude is really, really important. Yeah. I often tell people that, when you start the day with Jesus, it's for filling. But when you forget to do that and you start going into your day and then you go to Jesus after that, it's for recovery. Yeah, generally it's like, I think Lord, that's right. Yeah, bail me out. I've done all these things. And that's why it's so important to quickly, get to the Lord and say, Lord, fill me, give me wisdom, give me direction in this moment, because I will come for you for recovery, but I'd rather come for you for filling to start my day. Yeah. What advice would you give people right now who are in a season of waiting? And I think, in some respect, we're all in a bit of a season of waiting. Yeah. But what would you share with people? I think, and I don't think it's introvert, extrovert. I think community is so critical. I think we even noticed it when we took a break for the summer, because we kind of finished up community group, kind of in the last vestiges of COVID, and then, kind of everybody strung things out through the summer and nobody saw each other, and everybody was so glad just to get together, if nothing else, just to pray for each other. Yeah. And just knowing that you have fellow Christians who are praying for you and care for you. Huge. Yeah. Even if it's over Zoom. It's hard over Zoom. You got the Hollywood Squares thing for those who are old enough to remember that. But just knowing that you have people with your back. Yeah. And being able to check in with them. Even simple texts and things like that. Yeah. That's really important. Obviously, I've talked about the time in the Word. Yeah. I think those two things really, they give you the inside filling, and then they give you the external filling from your friends and people like that. Yeah, that's great. It's so important right now to be connected with one another, and it's really challenging right now too. Right. And I really like your advice just on listen. It might be Zoom, but
get over it, really. Like if that's our method of being able to connect with some people right now, then utilize it,
Right.
Because, as we come into winter and it's going to be harder to sit outside here in New England,
right.
these kind of things. But don't give up on meeting together, right? And that's a
even the really crazy things like texting and phone calls.
Yeah,
they work too,
Yeah.
So just even telling somebody that you care for them and that you're thinking of them.
Yeah.
It really helps people, I think, build them up.
Yeah. Here's a question that I was thinking about. How would you give people advice on being a friend to somebody in a season of waiting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I think talking to them on a regular basis, number one, is really important. But I think it's just like sometimes when you go to a funeral and nobody really knows what to talk about, and I'm sorry for your loss and all those kind of things. Sometimes it's just having the normal conversation about how I don't like the Patriots and you like the Patriots, kind of being able to have someone to talk to and just kind of distract yourself from that. I mean, I think, yes, you should ask them how they're doing, anything I can pray for, but also just, keep the relationship going and keep meeting with them and feeling that you have a network around you really helps.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I know that's for some folks, they've said, man, it's been hard because my friendships have all become about this one thing.
Right.
And that's really important, but at the same time, I really want my friends to, just keep pursuing the friendship, the relationship. Like my identity is not the fact that I'm in this season of waiting, but at the same time, that prayer support, that regular checking in, that encouragement is really important.
There's only so many ways you can ask, how's your family doing with COVID?
Yes.
At some point it gets a little old.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else, Grant, just in terms of like this past year and a half, any stories of how you've really seen God kind of speak to you in this moment? Is there anything that He's surprised you with in this season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as smart as you, of course. So
I am a doctor. It's pretty amazing how I got
old Doc Mowrey, right? But for me, I need a little more obvious signs from God that God is with me, and I always say God has a sense of humor because I can't tell you how many times I started writing them down and it was too frequent for me to follow up on. But I've had times when I'm going to lunch and I say a quick prayer to God and I've got a couple opportunities going and God, could you just make it clear which of these I should be pursuing? I had one time when I said that prayer, I drove to lunch. When I sat down at lunch, I opened up my phone and there was a clear go, no go on all three of them. And this was like within 15 minutes.
Wow.
So no activity for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, Lord, can you give me, some guidance? And then suddenly, boom, 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 very clear direction. Now it's, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes we have to wait for it, but a lot of circumstances like that, other things like in a devotional. I talked to my wife one day and I said that, I just feel like I'm being buffeted by waves and turbulence and, things like that, talking about the storms at sea. And then I went into my devotional and surprise, surprise, what was the devotional that day? You will be faced with storms and trials and waves that will overcome you. Remember to bask in the Lord and He will protect you.
Yeah.
There's been too many instances where it's been clear that God is saying, I got you. I got your back.
Yeah.
And I think that, I probably wouldn't have been in tune with those if I hadn't been in the Word and kind of having my antenna up. It's just like a friend you haven't seen for 20 years.
Yep.
You don't really know what's going on with them. But if you've been talking to them on a regular basis, you kind of know the twists and turns of their life and you have that relationship and you can kind of feel things more than, have to force them. Yeah.
That's really good. Sometimes I'll tell people, we're not just reading Scripture to check it off the list, right? But when we're reading Scripture in His Word, it's like downloading these files that give the Lord an opportunity to do things just like that. Pull out a devotion that comes from from the very word you were reading, and
right.
This person encourages you in this way. Oh my goodness, I was just in the Word of God there. It gives the Lord more opportunity to kind of say, hey, I'm here.
Right.
Don't worry about it. I've got you.
And the other thing about it too is I always joke with friends that I may have read a verse 20 times, and until I have to teach it in Sunday school, it won't hit me like, oh, that's what God means. Now I get it. And in the previous time, it's kind of in the moment. That's why you need to keep in the Word and keep talking to people, because sometimes somebody else says something and it's like, oh, I get it. 7 times around. Maybe I'm in the seventh, seventh lap of the journey or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I do pray that you're in the 7th lap of the journey.
Appreciate that.
Do. It's been a privilege to walk with you in this too, and just see how God has been speaking to you and how you've stayed committed to Him in it. Oftentimes people run from the Lord in seasons of waiting,
right?
And it's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's just a bad idea. Wouldn't you rather be walking with the Lord in each of these seasons?
Yeah.
And there are valuable lessons to take from them.
Right.
Well, friends, that's it for us right now. We thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to encourage you to tune in next week too, as we continue on in this whole section on saying yes in every season. Next week we're going to be talking about saying yes in a season of suffering, and you might know some folks who are going through a season of suffering right now. I want to encourage you to share this link with them and invite them to come and be a part of the conversation. It might be a blessing to them. Thanks, Grant, for joining me in your home. Thank you for that. And bless you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.